Welcome to Making a Difference, Avery Pride's TV series on underage drinking. My name is Kyle Blygen, and today the title of the show will be The Costs and Consequences, Family, Finance, and Freedom. Today I'll be discussing the costs and consequences of alcohol and its effects on minors drinking under the age. I will be discussing these topics with Judge Stephen Ott and attorney Catherine Sanderson. After that, I'll be followed by a panel discussion of 4 Avery Pride members. All of this will be coming up after the break, so stay tuned.
Make a difference. Prevent underage drinking.
Mom, why are you drinking so much? I'm the grown-up. I can do what I want.
No, I hate you!
Every year, over 900,000 children are abused by alcoholic parents. More than 10 million people ages 12 to 20 confessed to underage drinking in 2012. Annually, more than 1.3 million women are sexually taken advantage of while intoxicated. Drinking has consequences that affect more than just you. Next time, think about it.
For more information, go to www.didyouKnowFacts.net.
Facebook helps Albany police break up a pretty big underage drinking party. Saturday night, police discovered about 300 people crammed inside 556 Washington Avenue for a party. 3 UAlbany students are now facing charges, including serving alcohol to minors and underage drinking. Police told us that not only was underage drinking a problem there, there was also a pretty big concern about this all being a major fire hazard. The party was one of the largest house parties Albany police have ever had to put a stop to, they say. Police were tipped off through Facebook.
We had information prior to the party starting that there was going to be a large party on Washington Avenue at 556 Washington. So one of the sergeants, right around the time the party was supposed to start, sent a couple officers down there.
I only know him because there was an invitation on Facebook and a few of my friends were going. So I went with them.
Albany police say they still aren't sure how the minors got their hands on so much alcohol, but they say their investigation is continuing.
So what kinds of legal consequences could we be talking about here for the students allegedly involved in throwing that house party? Joining us live to talk more about that tonight, we have Michael Macomber with us. He is an attorney with Albany's Tully Rinke law firm. Michael, thank you for being with us once again tonight.
Thank you for having me.
And just on background, let's start with a basic question here. Serving alcohol to minors, what is the penalty for someone convicted of that?
Serving alcohol to minors, they could potentially be facing any kind of misdemeanor charges. Depending on whether or not this was a first violation or not, they may be able to negotiate some sort of lesser punishment, but it depends on, each individual.
Okay, so then we talk about these 3 people who are students. They are underage themselves. They're accused of serving to minors. Are they charged as juveniles or as adults here?
They're over, as I understand it, 2 of them are 19 years old, and I believe one of them was 20. They are all going to be charged as adults in this matter. They're over the age of 18, and they could also be facing some sort of punishment from the colleges as well.
So, in other words, they will be, like you said, tried as adults. There's no chance of any lessened consequences should they be found guilty of these charges?
There's always the chance for a lesser charge, depending, again, on the individual. If they have potentially a clean history, they may be able to work out a reduced sentence or reduced punishment given their particular case.
There was also talk about the potential for a massive fire hazard there. You had about 300 people in this space. What would have happened if something, heaven forbid, had gone wrong at this party? Would the students throwing the party have been found liable? The landlord? I know at 6 o'clock we heard from the landlord. He said he didn't even know about it until he read about this party in the paper.
That's probably a good answer from the landlord there. I think certainly the students could be liable if something had happened, if they were actually the ones who had been providing the alcohol. There are civil laws that govern that. The landlord, if he had absolutely no knowledge of this, had no involvement, the chances for his liability are pretty minimal.
Okay, so basically it's kind of the responsibility lies with the people responsible for actually throwing this party.
Most likely, given this circumstance.
All right, well, Michael Macomber, we thank you so much for taking time once again out of your evening, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon.
Thank you again.
Welcome back. I am joined here by Ms. Catherine Sanderson. She is a family attorney that operates out of Fayette County. So, Ms. Sanderson, What are some of the problems that you see teens and minors facing when they engage in underage drinking?
Well, there's legal consequences and there's social and family consequences. And as a family lawyer, I handle both. I've seen criminal consequences for youth ranging from just loss of a driver's license, probation, monitoring, that sort of thing. I've seen youth, as I was telling you before the break, I've seen youth who have gone to prison, all related to choices they made involving alcohol. And then the social consequences that I see to the family, I see disintegration of family structures, divorce, loss of custody, and those sorts of consequences.
Well, speaking specifically to the family, what's the most common consequence that you see that minors induce on their families when they willingly drink alcohol under the age?
So in cases that I handle, typically where there's a youth who's got an alcohol issue, whether he's been picked up for minor in possession or has an alcohol abuse issue that even if the police are unaware of it, it starts to create a stress in that family unit. Perhaps the parents disagree about how to handle it, that sort of thing. So, and that can lead to a divorce of that youth's parents. Other issues, of course, that arise with young people, ages 17, 18, 19, is sometimes you'll see an unintended pregnancy or some other bad choice made while youth were drinking that then causes their own problems, but also causes problems within their family unit and their family structure.
Now, through your years of experience, when you've dealt with cases, do the teens that you deal with not only take into account the consequences placed on themselves, but also their families?
I think that that's one of the biggest problems that teens face, is the ability to look at long-term consequences of their short-term actions and look at consequences to others besides themselves. They are not thinking about the impact on their parents or even their parents' jobs, their reputation in the community in the event that they are arrested for minor in possession or driving under the influence or something like that. The teens are thinking of themselves, and at that age it's understandable to think of yourself, but the consequences hit the whole family.
Okay. Financially, what is the burden that's placed on the family when their teens choose to drink under the age?
Well, not only are there costs associated, of course, if a youth is caught and is facing possible probation or even detention. Of course, a youth 17 and older would be charged as an adult with crimes. There's costs of going to court, there's probation costs of attorneys, fines can be assessed, those sorts of financial things. But then there's also, that youth is less likely to get a scholarship, or they may lose a scholarship. Some scholarships it's very clear that if you're arrested for an alcohol-related crime, that you lose your scholarship. So there's longer term consequences financially for that student and for that family.
So for a minor such as myself, if they choose to drink under the age, what are the consequences that they will face immediately, pending their arrest?
Well, again, it's an issue of decreased ability to make good choices. So youth who are drinking are more likely to make quick decisions that can affect them for the rest of their lives. Unintended pregnancy and unintended criminal acts. For example, a youth that I saw in court, his intention was simply to drink with his buddies. And that was his whole intention that night. But after they had been drinking a little bit, they ran out and somebody got the great idea, let's go get it from the liquor store. And they broke into a local liquor establishment simply to steal a 6-pack of beer. They stole that 6-pack of beer, got scared, the alarm went off, jumped in their car, the police were on their way, they tore out of there. So they've committed a felony of burglary by breaking the store. And then they ran from the police at a high rate of speed, which was another felony. And then they were so scared they didn't want to go home, so they drove across state lines, which is a third felony. I ended up watching that kid plead to a very, he could have been facing years and years and years in jail. He ended up spending 3 years in prison. So that was one night. He had no record. He had no criminal background. He was a good student. There was talk about how he had already enrolled in community college, and he made one bad choice that just took him down that road.
Well, he certainly got more than what he'd bargained for.
Absolutely.
When it comes to jail time, what's the highest amount of years that a teen can be placed with when caught drinking under the age?
So the actual crime of just minor possession, or just, and I say just, driving under the influence, that's a misdemeanor, and so it's a 1-year maximum. The likelihood of actually being incarcerated for that sort of crime the first time is really slim. The problem is that, as I was saying before, oftentimes the one crime gets then tied into another crime. And if you're caught for minor possession and you're put on probation for a year, that probation is pretty intense. They can test you for alcohol use, and if you're tested positive for alcohol use, you can then go to jail. You basically are giving up freedoms and privileges beyond just being on probation. Doesn't sound so bad, but you know, for the first offense, no, you're not going to go to jail unless while you're drinking you make other bad choices that lead you down that road.
Okay, I understand. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be joined after this break with Judge Stephen Ott. Thank you, and stay tuned.
Did you know that young drivers ages 16 to 20 are 17 times more likely to die in a crash when they have a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08% than when they have not been drinking? Think, don't drink.
Make a difference. Prevent underage drinking.
Glass and steel flew everywhere. My whole body seemed to be turning inside out. I heard myself scream!
17% of binge drinkers are teenagers. Drinking kills dreams.
Suddenly, I was awakened. It was very quiet. A police officer was standing over me. My body was mangled. I was saturated in blood. Pieces of glass were sticking out all over.
Nearly 72% of students have consumed alcohol by the end of high school, and 37% by 8th grade. Drinking kills dreams.
Strange that I couldn't feel anything. Hey, don't pull that sheet over my head. I can't be dead. I'm only 17.
Young people who drink are more likely to be involved in self-destructive behaviors. Drinking kills dreams.
I'm waiting for you.
For more information, go to www.didyouknowfacts.net.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I am joined now by Judge Stephen Ott, and he is here to provide insight in the judicial system pertaining to minors who drink under the age. So, Judge Ott, what are the consequences that a teen can face when they are caught drinking under the age?
Well, I think Ms. Sanderson talked about some of those consequences, both in those that we know of that the legal system can impose and unintended consequences. What I think would be important to know is that just because your friends or just because everyone else has received one particular treatment in court, the judge is not obligated to continue that program, that same sentencing for you. The potential is a year in jail, a $1,000 fine, up to 240 hours of community service, and you can lose your driver's license for having one beer.
Wow, that's more than you get bargained for with a bottle of beer.
Absolutely.
So you're telling me that, say I had a friend who was caught drinking under the age, who just had to pay a fine. If I was caught right now, I would not get the same penalty?
You're not guaranteed to get the same penalty. The prosecutor first, the judge second, will weigh out all of the facts of your case versus perhaps the facts of all the cases that have been heard, and judges try to impose equal sentencing. However, you will never know perhaps what factor in your case may trigger a judge to impose a harsher sentence.
Okay. Now, many individuals like myself and my peers, we look at the judicial system as individuals who are out to get us. But you have been in the field for some time, and you obviously have some connection to the cases that you've been in. So can you please tell not only me, but the individuals who may be viewing the show, what your personal views are on individuals drinking under the age? Should they defer their option, or should they completely not drink whatsoever?
What I try to encourage young people to do is I'm well aware that any of us that here don't or know do not respond well to that. So what I ask of young people would be to defer the decision until you're old enough to make it. The state law imposes the age of 21. There's actually science behind that age. It wasn't randomly selected. At the age of 21, you may be better able to make the choice. Better yet, you may be better able to avoid the unintended consequences because your maturity level may be better.
That's very true, because many individuals, when they drink under the age, they don't factor in not only the consequence that it's impending on themselves, but their families also.
Your families, your friends, your social life. Obviously, there are, as Ms. Anderson said, far worse things than paying a fine that can come from underage drinking.
So what's the most common case that you face in your practice when it comes to individuals who drink under the age?
Generally, what we see both in my practice where I am on the defense side and where I am seeing cases of the judge are generally young people get together in a group somewhere, someone's home, and maybe intend to have a beer, I'm not sure, but have far more than that. And again, you're not able at a young age to necessarily think through all of the consequences, think through what you're now going to do, provide for your own safety, and do all that you can to make the consumption of alcohol as an adult when you're a child.
Now, this is an honest question. I'm going to keep it frank. When the judicial system creates these laws and these consequences, do they do it for the fun, or do they create laws that they believe will help in the deterrence of minors who drink under the age?
Laws first come about generally because there's a need to address a particular problem or issue. They can come from society regularly. What issue is society facing? Texting while driving, for example, was not an issue when I was in high school. That became an issue and had to be addressed. The consumption of alcohol by people under the age of 21 we know to be highly detrimental. Whether you're ever caught or not, the damage to your brain and to your body can be significant. So the law was designed to give us a way to address that. It was not meant, well, let's just find ways to make people's life miserable, and contrary to popular opinion, it is not a fundraising activity of the government. Yeah. It is to address what can be a horrific event in a young person's life.
I understand. Okay, so you're not necessarily out to be against us, you're just there to help us out.
Well, the way that I approach things, in fact, being here is part of that, is if we can avoid the use of alcohol and use of drugs when you first come through in Peachtree City, and I believe probably in most courts, the very first time we try to provide some sort of educational component. I would like for you to hear what it does to you to consume alcohol at a young age. In fact, even when you're older, it's not the best thing, but to hear that, to understand the unintended consequences that no one thinks about. Ms. Sanderson shared some of those, and it's a very good example of that.
So I just want to make sure it's clear to everyone who's watching the show. Judge Ott is a part-time judge, and he's a full-time lawyer, and he just said that he prefers prevention so that we don't end up in one of his courts. So to my friends watching this show, I would urge you to think twice before you down your second beer. Think twice before you go to that party, because you might get more than what you bargained for by just taking that brewski. But hold on, this conversation is not over yet. I will be joined later after this break with an AV Pride panel. Thank you, and stay tuned.
Did you know youth who drink alcohol are 7.5 times more likely to use any illicit drug and 50 times more likely to use cocaine than young people who never drink alcohol? Think, don't drink.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. As you can see, I am joined by 4 AV Pride members, and we will begin our discussion now. I am joined by Dominique, Aaron, Taylor, and Tania. The first question is for Tania. Tania, you've seen the video. Why do you believe that individuals our age do not fear the consequences as much as they should?
I feel as though teenagers do not fear the consequences as much as they should, is because the consequences do not directly impact their lives. Rather, it impacts the parents' lives, their parents' wallet, or whether they have to drive them around. So the teenager is still kind of in the mindset like, oh, like, it doesn't bother me because the money doesn't come out of my pocket, And just because I don't have to do it, like drive myself, well, I'll just get somebody else. So the burden doesn't fall directly on them. It falls on another extended party.
Okay. Taylor, based on the conversation that I held with both Judge Ott and Ms. Sanderson, do you believe that individuals our age should feel the consequences more?
I think we should, but I feel that the laws should be stronger put on the teens because I feel like they just don't fear it at all. So, yeah.
Okay. And based on the video, Aaron, what do you think the role of society should be when it comes to allowing or encouraging minors to drink alcohol?
You see it in the media a lot, how they, like a lot of artists and singers encourage drinking, encourage underage drinking as for a reason to have fun. And you see it in TV shows, you see it in music, you see it like everywhere, and they're just basically saying, like society is saying, it's okay to drink, it's okay, it's like that's the only way that you can have fun, but it's not. So I think the music, which is like a lot of teens listen to music, they need to take that and like cut off that saying alcohol is okay, because it's not, because they're not saying what the consequences are, they're only saying what's going to happen while you're drinking.
Well, Dominique, you attend school. Do the peers that you associate yourself with, do they acknowledge the consequences, or do they know the legal ramifications that would be inflicted upon them if they were partaking in underage drinking?
Well, a lot of friends that I hang out with, they don't drink, and so, but as we learn in school, like in health class, that they do know like what are the effects of drinking, but not a lot of people really fear them because they think that it's just a joke. They don't really believe it's going to happen to them personally.
Well, this is a question to you all based on that response. Thank you. Do you believe that education on alcohol and its prevention should be more taught in our schools today? You first, Tania.
I feel as though it's been taught enough to the point where it doesn't hold that much high a place in our minds, because it's been drilled into us since we've been in elementary school. So we hear it enough to where it just goes over our head when we keep hearing it, because we assume that we know everything when truly we don't. So teaching about awareness and prevention, I feel like it may not do as much in a teen's lives just to teach you what it is and like what could happen, rather than showing a real life example.
Okay. Taylor?
I feel like they should try to do it from a different viewpoint, maybe not just drilling it from the books in class. Maybe we could have a person that experienced underage drinking and actually went through the consequences, and then have them explain their story. And maybe that'll put more of an impact on teens, because I feel like if you're looking at a book, it's not really going to make you want to listen to it.
Yeah, and odds are that book is outdated anyway.
Yeah.
So the truth is, you need a more real-life example. But sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
I agree with both Tania and Taylor. Like the approach that the school goes with it isn't good enough. Like it can always be better, because, you know, like Tia said, we've been having these drug awareness drills since we were in elementary school. It's been going through high school. We have Red Ribbon Week, and like that may scare a couple of teens for like a week or so, but it doesn't really get to them because they never expect for it to happen to them. They think it's always someone else.
Dominique?
I agree with all three of them. I think that it's true that a lot of people don't really like pay attention to it as much, but I feel like drilling it will just not work at all, because it'll just like they'll be annoyed by it, like hearing it over and over again. They just won't even care anymore. So people do it in spite of it.
Do you believe that our generation drinks more through curiosity or more through rebellion? Tania?
I believe it's an equal mixture of both, or just because the fact that they simply just don't care, because it's not necessarily that they're peer pressured into it and they know what alcohol is. Like our generation is aware of what it is. So for curiosity standpoint, they're like, yeah, well, I see this person drinking, they look like they're having a lot of fun, so like I could have that type of fun too. And so it's that mindset. But also like rebellion-wise, parents really aren't teaching their kids to be like aware of the dangers of it. They're just like, don't drink, and that obviously doesn't do anything. So their parents not telling them not to drink, there's really no reason for rebellion.
Okay, well, Taylor, thank you for that response. Do you believe that parents now need to ask themselves, how can we re-educate our children on the dangers of alcohol?
Yeah, I think parents need to kind of look at it more seriously, because I feel like they're thinking of drugs more as a serious impact on our youth, but instead they should be looking at alcohol more because more people are doing it. More teens are doing it.
Well, this is a candid question, but is alcohol more available than drugs are? I know alcohol is considered a drug, but you know what I mean, the hard drugs.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Do you believe it is? Is it easier to attain?
It's in your house. I mean, you can just, it's so easy to get, so. Or it's not necessarily not in everyone's home, but it could be, you can get it from your friends, anyone, you can get it anywhere.
Okay, Aaron, do you believe that living in a household that promotes drinking, do you believe that helps or negatively affects individuals' outlook on alcohol as a whole?
I do believe that is a big influence if underage drinking isn't watched in the households, because it's part of the parents' job to make sure that their children are doing the right thing, and when that's not being enforced, it's like their parents are saying that they don't really care what their children are doing and what kind of trouble that they can get into. So in my household, my parents are very strict about us doing the right thing and not having drugs or alcohol in their house or anything like that. They know to keep their alcohol, if they even have any, protected and away from us.
Okay. Well, Dominique, as the youngest member of the panel, do you believe that alcohol is utilized or taught on more at your school during your age, or it needs to be taught more, or the children need to be educated more about alcohol?
I feel like people are educated well enough, but it's just that all the pressure, like all the peer pressure throughout school, people want to fit in and want to do other stuff like the older kids. So I think it's just the peer pressure altogether. It just influences a lot of people.
Well, this is the question to the entire panel. Do you believe that teens respond better to defer our action to drink alcohol under the age, or do we respond better when people just tell us don't drink?
I would have to say to defer it, simply because you're not telling us exactly what to do. And at our point in age and growing, we want to start being independent and make our own decisions. So for an adult to tell us to defer, you feel like you have a say in what you have to do instead of being like, do this, do that because I said so. So deferring it overall would have a greater impact in prevention.
Okay.
I agree with Tania. I feel like no one really wants to be told what to do. I think everyone has that natural impulse in them to say, I know you told me not to, but you don't tell me what to do. But I feel like if they deferred it, it would help us kind of get a choice, I guess.
Aaron?
Yeah, I agree with both Taylor and Tania, but I also think it also just depends on the mindset of the teenager, because I know society has been saying a lot that alcohol, you're in high school, you're a teen, you're supposed to do this and stuff like that. So even if it is deferred, it's all in that. It's all up to the student or the teenager to make that choice for himself to know what's good or bad for him or her.
Dominique?
I agree with all three of them altogether. They all make great points. I think that we will have a choice to be defer and stuff like that.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard firsthand from the youth of America. Defer. Many individuals may come to you and tell you not to drink as a whole, but I urge you to defer, because the consequences that you face, you may not be aware of, but they are certainly there. Whether you're caught drinking or you're in a car with an individual who is intoxicated, if you are pulled over or you are under the age, you will be in trouble and you will face consequences. So I urge you, defer your decision and think about the consequences. And we will continue this conversation and close the show after this break.
Did you know school is not a preferred place to drink alcohol? The penalties in schools for being caught, which can include extended out-of-school suspensions, are usually high enough to discourage use during school hours. Think, don't drink.
Hello everyone. This is the part of the show where it's winding down, This is the part of the show where usually hosts would try and give you a message that they want you to hold on to. Well, this will be a little bit different. Many of us teens have seen all the shows on TV. We've heard our health teachers. We've held the individuals who speak to us in the halls. But for some reason, it doesn't stick. It's because the costs and the consequences aren't heavy enough, or we don't remember them when we're going through these acts. I urge you today to defer your action. You've heard from not only professionals, but your own fellow peers, the youth of America. There are many consequences that we don't factor in when we engage in underage drinking. So I would urge you, defer your action, wait till you're the age to drink. And please, don't put an extra burden on yourself, your family, or the individuals around you. Because the decisions you make don't only affect you, but they affect every single individual that you come into contact with. So, if you need any more help, if you need any guidance, go to an individual who you know can lead you in the right direction. Go to a person who you could speak to confidentially and tell them your problems. Hopefully you're not a raging alcoholic, but if you are, there's help for you. I'm not trying to make light of the situation. I know that alcohol is something that's facing our world very hardly these days, but many individuals don't face it. Well, I'm here to face it. Ladies and gentlemen, understand the consequences and understand the cost. That bottle of beer maybe can promise you falsely one night of happiness, but it may cause your life down the road pain, strife, and suffering. As you saw from the judge and the attorney that was here, there are many consequences and many ramifications that drinking at the age can bring to us. So, if you need any more information, if you need any more help, visit www.avpride.org. Thank you.